Chapter 7. Matthew Allen was a farmer in Kansas. He had been a widower for the last 3.5 years. His 7-year-old daughter Mavis and his 13-year-old son Bobby were both asleep in their rooms upstairs. Matty, as he preferred to be called, was in his lazy-boy recliner and popped open a can of Budweiser. He was watching the Home Shopping Network without too much interest, but he was entertained enough. That was better than all the evangelical hooey on the other channels at that late hour. Company was coming, although he wasn't expecting any. A beat-down old truck was speeding up the dirt driveway to his house. Matty set his beer on the coffee table and went for his shotgun. He was not an overly paranoid sort of man, but he had a strong inclination to be careful. He popped in 2 slugs of buckshot as he headed for the front door. By the time he was at the peephole, the visitor was hopping out of the truck. A dust cloud kicked up when the visitor's boots hit the dirt. He was a tall man. He looked to be somewhere in his 40s. A few wisps of gray, shoulder-length hair spilled out from under a few sparse sections of his cowboy hat. It almost looked like cobwebs. He was wearing a brown leather trench coat over a flannel shirt and blue jeans. His boots came clunking up the porch steps. The stranger balled up his fist and banged 3 times on the door. Matty near jumped out of his skin at the booming knocks. "Who is it?" Matty asked gruffly and cautiously. "Well, hello there," the stranger said in sweet, dragged-out southern tones. "I'm having a spot of vehicle trouble and wondered if I might use your phone." "You don't appear to be having no trouble to me." The man turned and looked at his truck. "Well, I know she looks like she's running good, but the warning lights are on, and I got a ways to go, and—" "Ah, hell, you're right," he laughed. "I ain't having no trouble. Actually, I need a place to stay the night. Wonder if you and yours might oblige?" "It's just me here, and no, you can't stay. Now cut out all this foolishness and go on. Get going, you hear?" "Now that ain't very hospitable." "Well, you can't say I didn't ask nice." The man cocked back his right arm and punched his fist into the middle of the strong wooden door. The whole thing came off its hinges and the lock snapped. It plowed right through Matty with some of its frame still attached. Matty went soaring across the living room, and when the momentum of the blow died out, he fell on his back with the door lying heavily on top of him. The shotgun had flown from his hand and was lying uselessly by the chattering television. The man casually entered the house and nodded his head approvingly. "Pretty cozy," he said. "Too bad I can't stay too long, what with the place all busted up now. Guess I'll have to find another one tonight." Matty pushed the door off of him and looked at the towering intruder. He didn't look much like a man after all, at least not like any he'd ever seen before. There was something wrong with him. His face was too smooth under the rim of that hat, eerily seamless. His nose was barely there at all, just a nub with 2 tiny holes for nostrils. Just above it were 2 beady, cold blue eyes that sparkled and smiled. He had no lips. There was just a slit of a mouth. He could see the nubs of teeth poking out through his grin. He was unusually tan. Coming out of his rolled-up shirt sleeves were 2 dark arms that were hairless and muscular like molded clay. His hands were thick but not veiny. He only had nail tips poking through the skin of his fingertips. The 2 kids came running down the stairs in their PJs and stopped halfway when they saw what all the commotion was. "Well, well," the stranger said to Matty after taking a long look at the pair on the stairs. "Looky what we have here. Now I thought you said you was all alone." The living room was relatively small, and when the stranger was momentarily distracted and not looking at Matty, he leapt. He crashed into the television stand, knocking the TV over on its side. It continued babbling away. He picked up his gun and cocked it instantly. The stranger raised his hands and said, "Now come on, you don't want to." Matty pulled the trigger, and both barrels went off in a flash. Some of the shot ricocheted, and Matty felt a piece rip the air less than an inch from his left ear. He had hit the guy square in the chest. He saw it. "Now you owe me a shirt." The stranger seemed quite annoyed, and his dulcet tones deepened. The front of the fabric had been shredded, but his smooth chest beneath it seemed unharmed. "Don't worry, I'll help myself." "Get out!" It was all Matty could muster. The stranger's face filled with rage, and he rushed at the old farmer. He grabbed Matty's face in one big hand and grabbed his shoulder with another, lifting him off the floor. His feet dangled helplessly. The stranger pushed the shoulder downward and pulled the face upward. The flesh and bone in the neck gave, and Matty's head was ripped from his body, creating a momentary fountain of blood that washed over the killer. He shook his head to get the wetness off of his face. Then he let the body fall. He still held the head by the face. "Daddy!" Mavis screamed in unison with Bobby. They darted for escape through the newly widened hole in their house. "Oh, no, you don't." He dropped the head and grabbed them from behind by the backs of their pajama tops, one in each hand. He flung Bobby with his right arm into the wall, who fell to the floor unconscious or maybe dead. He would check later. Mavis was screaming as he picked her up and carried her effortlessly. All the while she was kicking and flailing. He said to her, "Don't worry, little miss. I'll be gentle."